Hi.
Welcome to Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot. That's Nell. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, he is. His name's Scott, though. And we're Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot, and we're going to talk about why my TBR is racist.
You've a racist TBR?
It's over there.
You should run for government.
Okay.
So you took some photos.
I did.
And you've posted them to Instagram?
Sure.
Let's see if this happens.
Well, we'll show them now. This is a photo of my TBR shelf divided into boys and girls.
I'm going to have to use my imagination to see this.
The boys are on the left and the girls are on the right. Of the three photos that I took, I expected to not suck at this one. And I sucked.
But
It gets worse from here.
all right. Then what did you divide it into next now?
So this is white people and people of colour. Same situation. See how that's much worse?
But wait, it gets worse.
And the last one I did was cis hetero versus queer books.
Sorry.
Which, as you can see, is even worse. So we counted the books on my TBR shelf, and there's 138 in total. And only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Only 15 of those could be considered queer books.
And we have to say, some of the queer books, one of them, we're not 100% sure that he is asexual, mainly because he committed suicide before he got famous. So we're going on
Reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd prefer not to count that. I feel like to be a queer book, you have to be out and proud when you're published.
Well, he wasn't. I don't know if he. I think that he just basically was so not famous.
I understand, but if you're not representing, then how are you representative?
Yeah, but I just think that so little is known about him that, like, he would have, like, it was the 70s and. But anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but how can...
How can he... I know what you're saying, but...
But you're stupid? Were you trying to count him anyway?
If we've got a friend who is out amongst all of our friends, but is not, like, doesn't advertise that they're gay to the world, just doesn't think it's any of their business, and then, you know,
it's about visibility, and if they're not intentionally visible, then how can their work be counted as through that lens? Like,
yeah, okay. And the other one that is quite dodgy is there's an ancient Greek author there that it's sort of like, what was the ancient Greeks' idea of sexuality?
It was very much more fluid than ours.
Yeah. And is that, I mean, I guess that probably means that's all good, but I feel like it's a different lens.
Well, and I think representation of that lens is what we're trying to like that's actually what we're trying to do is get voices who have different experiences, different attitudes towards sexuality.
So
I definitely think of the 3 different categories, the categorizing it into sort of queer and then cis hetero books is the most difficult to sort of set a bar and to make a clear-cut decision. But ultimately, we're not really at the point of splitting hairs because it's really clear from those 3 pictures that my bookcase is not representative in any stretch of the imagination. It is white, male, and straight, and that's so upsetting.
So let's discuss it. There's a few things here.
Yeah.
Firstly, how much of this is books that you've actually bought? Because I know your best friend moved to the country and they moved house and they gave you a whole bunch of books that you just put on your TBR. A lot of them belonging to Stephen King, who...
He's a dude, yeah.
Who's a straight white dude. Suddenly you've got 20 Stephen King books.
Well, I think 20 is an exaggeration, but...
You've got the entire Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
Maybe 10.
Yeah. There's definitely a few things like that. At some point, I've picked up a batch load of David Eddings from a secondhand bookshop, and that definitely is a bit Stephen King. Like, if you took Stephen King and David Eddings out of my stack, it would look a little bit better. But the thing that disappointed me the most is not so much the domination of the left-hand side. It's how few books I have on the other side. I feel like I've been consciously buying from representative sections of people for like 6 months. And
it's not showing.
And it's not showing. And I mean, definitely one contributor to that fact is I'm more likely to read a book that I have just bought than I am likely to read an old book from my TBR.
So how many do you think that of LGBT, black, people of colour, whatever, do you think that you've read? Like, I think your ratio for those things for reading is better than your TBR.
Yes, for sure. I think you're right. I even think we counted up not so long ago.
Yeah, we did. We actually filmed a video, but it got lost at
somewhere.
Some point, and we never uploaded it. But we did one where we guessed how we guessed what percentage of people we read were people of colour and gay, and
it was still disappointing, but it wasn't this disappointing. It was.
We actually guessed really accurately.
Yeah. Okay. I think my thing with the TBR is you can only read what's on your shelf. And if your shelf is dominated by white dudes, then that's what you're going to read. And when I think about it, if I were to stop buying books now, it would take me, I reckon, 2 years to read the books on my TBR. And so does that mean it's going to be 2 years before I start to see some representation?
Well, I don't think it does, because as you said, you read the newest books.
I do have a tendency to
all
read
the
newer
time.
books.
Just on the way home from work today, I said that I'd read a book. I'd read Freshwater by... I can't remember her name. It's a lovely poetic name. But she is Nigerian, black, trans author. And you said, that's in the mug because I did it on audiobook. You said, I've got that in the post.
Yeah, it is in the post. And there is definitely a lot of books that I've bought in the last couple of weeks that haven't arrived yet that would make these pictures a little bit better. But still not percentage-wise better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing really well, but I guess what this has shown me is that buying consciously is not enough. That if you're already in a system that is filled with privilege, that shifting the balance of that system
takes an effort. You need to have like a quota system. That's the only thing that.
Well, I mean, like that's what they do in sort of industrial situations.
It's what like South Africa's done that to their workforce. They've
like even their cricket team.
Yeah, their cricket team. How did you know a cricket-related fact?
I wonder.
Yeah, but yeah, and a lot of young white people are complaining about getting jobs because all the experienced white people have taken the white quota jobs. But to improve the ratio, you've got to give those jobs to the black people.
Yeah.
So
you have to go hard, and then you have to continue to be conscious once you've achieved some kind of parity until attitudes change, and then it should happen naturally. My thing is, like, so I look at my TBR, and a lot of the books on my TBR, I've got a bunch of Margaret Atwood books because I decided I was going to read all of her books. And I've got a bunch of Stephen King because I had some Stephen King, and then my friend knows I will read Stephen King, and she's finished with hers, so she gave hers to me before she moved. You sort of gather authors that you already know you're comfortable with and familiar with.
And you're not gathering black LGBT.
Yeah, I'm not gathering representative authors yet because I haven't read enough of them. I've definitely picked up a few in the last few months I've only read Kindred, but Octavia Butler is an instant buy for me as far as I'm concerned. Like, I believe I will end up adding her to my little challenge of read that entire author because Kindred was amazing.
Now, one thing I'd like to point out, you've got 15 books there from 130 something for the LGBT books.
Yeah.
Let's just play devil's advocate here. What percentage of the population fits into that queer bubble? Because I actually Googled this and it's so all over the place depending on...
Well, and is there like a queer study that does the whole rainbow rather than just like how many are gay, lesbian?
Well, most of them only count LG and B as queer because the water gets muddied for scientific reasons or something, I don't know.
Yeah, it's too hard for them to get out of their own way,
Yeah. But looking at some of the studies had it as low as 1%. Some of the studies had it as high as 15%. It definitely changed from country to country. Brazil had it at 15%. I can't remember.
And there's no gay people in Russia.
That I did not read a study on Russia. I don't know.
Oh, really? Shocked.
It was probably repressed. I think Trump won't have the copy though. But he doesn't believe the research.
So what's the if I wanted 15%? Let's pretend that that's a real figure.
15% of 130 is 21.
So I'm still nowhere near it.
I like that you just assumed that I got that right. But
I mean, you do have a degree in maths.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I assume your arithmetic is correct.
It's 15% of 140 is 21. Yeah. I've rounded it up from 138 to 140.
That's fine.
If you're wondering why we keep looking to our right, that is the direction of Nelle's TBR shelf is.
So we're looking at the shelf.
So the topic matter is there. So you're at 15 and you want to be at 21. So you're not super far off, but you do definitely need to make an effort to get that up.
So I know you said I want to be at 21, but I don't actually want to be at 21 because ultimately, in my opinion, I'm straight. I have the straight perspective. I don't need more examples of the straight perspective. And if I'm really going to learn about my own privilege and start to put aside assumptions and create some visibility in my own mind for queer folk, then I need to be almost reading a dominant amount of queer literature. And the same goes for other representative groups. Like, I think that 50% needs to be a minimum almost for these sort of categories. If your goal is to read enough to educate yourself on history and culture and the struggle, I guess.
Well, I think there's that saying, great suffering creates great art. And who's suffered more than the gays? Like, they get
and
hate
people
crime.
of color, and
Exactly.
And I mean, not just that, but like I read for new perspectives, and when I was 12 or 14, I guess there was a time when a different time period was enough to sort of scratch that itch, where a girl similar to myself from 200 years ago, that was a new perspective and that was interesting. But actually, the perspectives that I crave now are people who have completely different experiences to me. I'm really interested in like refugee stories. I'm really interested in queer stories because that's not the life I've lived, and the queer people I love have no responsibility to educate me on their experience.
Also, we're hermits. We don't
actually talk to people.
We know a couple, but
yeah, we have queer people,
relatives,
and not relatives. He's just not very good. He's not very good at thinking of who we know.
I'm not.
Oh, it's a puppy.
Also, I don't want to out them on booktube to other people we know in case they're not out,
But so my aim is going to be, I think, that for the next 100 books I buy, none of them be straight white dudes.
Ooh.
I'm going to definitely give preference to people of colour, and then queer people. I don't think white women count. I think they need to fall into those two categories. I think by fulfilling the categories of people of colour and queer people, I will get more female representation anyway.
I think one of the things that was really interesting with the Black Lives Matter is when you watched a lot of the black booktubers, they kept saying, look for black men. And from me, I was like, well, surely black women get it worse.
It's like from an intersectional feminist sort of point of view, that's quite a strange...
but...
Right, yeah, it definitely was something that confused me. But obviously they weren't getting the visibility.
When you consider racism is essentially... When you consider that racism essentially comes from fear, it kind of makes sense that black men get it worse than women because...
I definitely think that they're, particularly in the difficulties that they're having in the difficulties. In the bullshit that's going on in the States right now, I think that men suffer a particular set of problems that maybe don't happen to women as much or at all.
But, if the black booktube community says that black men get it worse, then
listen to them.
Black men get it worse.
Yeah. They were saying watch black male booktubers. Might just be that they're underrepresented in booktube.
Well, they are. Men seem to be a lot less prevalent. I think men read less than women or something.
Yeah, well, there's certainly less of you in the videos that we watch.
Yeah. But, we still watch some, but... Anyway.
So that's going to be my mission. My next 100 books are going to be representative conscious, and then after that I'll try and keep my purchases 50-50, but I imagine it will take me a while to buy my next 100 books. And
How are you going to track it? How are you going to keep yourself accountable?
I don't know, maybe we'll do some haul videos.
Some haul videos?
Yeah.
And what if you slip up? What if you accidentally...
or I just can't help myself, or there's a book that I just have to have.
Yeah.
And then I think I need to replace it with double. So I think if I have to buy the next Stephen King, like that's not going to be what I slip up for, people. But if I have to buy...
Dan Brown is much more likely.
No. But if I have to buy...
J.D. Salinger.
Something that doesn't fit into my categories, then I have to add another 2, I guess, to my total before I can go back to...
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Did that make sense? Were they words?
It did make sense.
Yeah.
So, of your next 300 books, 200 of them are going to be by Black or LGBT or disabled or...
Yeah. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
So what will that... So I've got 140, say, now. So that would put me at 440.
Yeah.
And it would still mean that I'm probably a little bit white dominant.
Well, it depends because...
It will depend on how I read.
If you buy Marlon James, he's both Black and LGBT. But if you buy Jeanette Winterson, she's just a lesbian. Like...
Just a lesbian.
Just a lesbian. Like...
So it depends on both how intersectional I am and how I read as I go as well.
Yeah, exactly.
If I focus on reading some of my... See, that's where things can get tricky. Because if I wanted to really push my TBR to be more Black, then the thing that I would do is read and unhaul white books. And the point is not to focus on reading white books. It's to make sure that I've got a representative selection to choose from.
Well, the last thing I want to say is when you divided stuff for cisgendered and for heterosexual, homosexual, queer, whatever you want to call it, there's lots of words there. It was terrible, and I said, I don't think you've searched well enough. And we went through and we actually Googled every author, and we doubled your number.
It's still terrible.
It's still terrible, but you know somebody's gender and you know somebody's race, and it's very easy to Google somebody's race. It's not so easy to Google somebody's sexuality.
Yeah. Also, I discovered that there were authors. I didn't know that Emma Donoghue was a lesbian. And I would never have read her with that in mind, and now I will. Now I will read her, and it will add to my representation of...
Will that add to your experience or not? Because sometimes going in blind is good, and other times...
Well, I don't think it matters if it adds to my experience or not. I think it matters that I'm conscious of those voices and that they're visible to me, that these people exist. I think representation matters, and if you can't see who is being represented and you can't classify them or you don't know, then to you the world is always going to be replicas of yourself, and that's not a good world.
Yeah. All right. The last thing I'm going to do is say if you're... Sorry.
No, I didn't say anything.
The last thing I want to say is if you're either a Black or an LGBTQIA booktuber, please put a wavy face, a wavy hand emoji in there. And everybody else, please look in the comments for the wavy hands.
And go
visit them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when he says Black, he means people of colour. So
of course, Black. I'm sorry, yes. All the people of colour.
Yes.
Or no, if you're disabled as well, or...
Didn't even look at to say like different ability as far as representation.
Yeah, or any form of discrimination that we have neglected. Minorities, yeah, any form of minority that we have neglected, because disabled people get overlooked in that conversation all the time.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what challenges a disabled person has writing a book, creating a booktube channel.
And even, like, are we looking for... and I think this is often a question that I ask myself with queer literature too. Are we looking for own voices representation, which I think is most important? I think that you should be looking for queer people writing about queer people, because straight people writing about queer people just don't know what they're fucking talking about. Or should we be looking for them to be more visible in general? Do we want straight people writing about queer people in a non-tokenized sort of way?
Well, I think that we do want straight people writing about queer people. Actually, I really like the idea of running a movie company that makes books into movies, where you set the casting out for all the parts to both to everybody. You don't restrict it,
and everyone, the best actor wins.
And you gender flip everything, and everybody is bisexual or whatever. Like you make it fit.
And Juliet is blind, and
you do all of that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, but I never know what to count as.
I think you have to count.
I think there needs to be frank and open discussion about what is good representation and what is bad representation. And I think for that to happen, more people need to be reading books that are representative of both queer and disabled folk.
Yeah. And I think that all the authors just need to listen to those communities. I think trying something and stuffing it up is a lot better than not trying something.
Well,
as long as you don't get defensive.
The best would be to like educate yourself first, go to the community first, and then try.
Yeah, but if you don't, I don't think authors should be scared about getting it wrong. I think if they tried and they got it wrong, and people say you got it wrong, you just come out and say I got it wrong. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. And that's fine. Do better. But actually, don't just say that and do the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He's so cute. I wish you could see his little face. He's just snoring his little puppy head off, and he looks so adorable.
Yeah.
I want to take a photo of him and show you all.
This is quality video here.
He's so cute. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, are we good? Bye.
Bye. Oh boy.